Hi. So, this is going to be a little bit different video, but not really too different. If you've watched any of my videos on Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder, then it will be somewhat similar to those videos. Mainly because I'm talking about another tabletop RPG. One that I've actually been playing for like 4 weeks, so about a month. And that is one of the ones that I talked about in one of the other videos where my group was deciding after our D&D campaign what we were going to be transitioning into. We are still thinking about Pathfinder, but, you know, our GM, or in this case our storyteller, who has been playing Vampire The Masquerade for 20 years, over 20 years at this point, has decided, like, hey, if you guys want to do this, we can. And I, being the only person at the group and at the table that hasn't played Vampire, was like, yeah, I'm interested. Because I'm always down to play a new TTRPG, and Vampire is one of those ones that has intrigued me a little bit and is always interesting to start. Mainly because in Vampire, you're technically a bad guy, and, you know, you could play a good person, but at the end you're a blood-sucking monster. So, it's an interesting dichotomy in comparison to, you know, D&D or Pathfinder of those likes, where you are the heroic adventurers going out and saving the day. You're not really saving the day, you're mostly just trying to, you know, get in and get out and be in a better spot, you personally, than everyone else. So this is mostly going to be a first impressions type of video where I talk about what I enjoy so far and what I think it does slightly better than you know, Pathfinder or D&D, but I will also say that this is not a whole critique as a whole. This is just me talking about how I feel about playing the game so far. There is also another caveat that we are not playing the newest edition of Vampire, so V5 or 5th edition of Vampire. We are playing the, one second, I'm pulling up on my phone so you can see it. We are playing the 20th anniversary edition of Vampire the Masquerade, so slightly different. We just chose that, well, mostly the storyteller, who, like I said, is the GM or DM of Vampire. That's what they call them. And that's what he decided. We could have played, you know, the newest edition. There is another person at our table that has, you know, run a few games for that. And, you know, the other two people have said, like, he's pretty good at it. But we decided this, and so far, I enjoy it. Now then, other caveats to say is Vampire the Masquerade is adult. Like, I'm just going to say that straight out. It is not for really all that much for children. Mostly because you are dealing with a lot of heavy subject matter and a lot of things that... it's just a lot. Like, just because you're a vampire, you are going to be drinking blood. There are, the other themes of, like, usage of illicit substances, trying to get around that YouTube. Then there's also the tango in the sheets type of deals, and other things that are not really for kids. So that is to be warned. Also, like I said, this is the 20th anniversary, and this isn't going to be covering every little detail of the game as a whole. This is just my first impressions and what I feel is relatively its strong suits. So, let's get into the finer little overviews of the game and go from there. So, the main thing that is different than if you've only played Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder, the main difference is that in those systems, you are playing a D20 system. So you are rolling a D20, you know, a 20-sided die for most of the outcome. And then you are using the other dice that you have to then resolve like buffs, debuffs, attack, like damage rolls, or healing. And the D20 is literally the dice that you use to figure out what those results are. So for attack rolls, saving throws, skill checks, those type of deals. Vampire, on the other hand, uses what is known as a dice pool system, specifically a D10 dice pool system. So you are going to use a large amount of D10s. You are going to pick them up, roll them, and the numbers on there are determining your success or failures. And just like in D&D, the 20 for a D20 and a 1 for, the 1 are the critical successes and critical failures. On Vampire, a D10, the 10 is a critical and a 1 is a botch or a critical failure. So how this works is, you scoop up your dice pool, you roll it, and then depending on how difficult the thing that you want to do, it determines how, what your numbers need to be. So for instance, if it's a pretty simple, easy thing, you just need like a 3 on the dice, and that is considered a success. Now, if you are doing something kind of in the middle, not too hard, not too difficult, you need like a 5 or 6. And then if you have something that is extremely difficult, like you will probably fail it, you're going to need like a 10, 9, or 8, around there. They're hard. So that is how you figure out what your rolls are and your successes are. Now, you're probably wondering, how do you figure out the dice pool? Well, each of your different stats and abilities on your character sheet that you determined in character creation, those are your stats, as well as the little dots next to whatever it is. So for instance, dexterity, if you have 3 dots in that, you will then have 3 dice that you add to any dexterity related checks. And then let's say you have 2 in firearms, so you would take your 2 in firearms and your 3 in dexterity, mash them together, and you get 5 dice. That is your dice pool for that check, and so on and so forth. It's not too complicated of a system. You do need to get a little bit used to rolling multiple dice for everything. For instance, in D&D, you only really need to roll 2 dice, and for most things where it's determining successes, and from there you go on and roll many more. So that is the major difference between the 2 systems that I know. And obviously, because of how that works, the difference is between playing D&D and Vampire go drastically different. You only need D10s for Vampire. That is all you need. So maybe a little bit cheaper, you can get a 10 set on Amazon for $10 and you're good. And you will eventually get to the point where you're rolling a lot of dice. If you're playing a very old Vampire, you could theoretically roll 30 dice for one thing, and at that point you should just roll a dice roller, like an online dice roller, and you'll be set. But from there, you have other differences that I will talk about. The other main difference that I've noticed so far, well, besides setting wise, but we're not really going into that right now, is experience. Experience in Vampire is a little bit different than experience in D&D. In that, in D&D, if you gain experience, you eventually go from level 1 to 2, and so on and so forth, and that is how you grow as a character. In Vampire, the experience is done differently, in the fact, you don't gain a lot of experience. For instance, at our table, the storyteller is only giving us 5 XP for each session. Wow. Session. There we go. And you can then like bank that experience and eventually spend it on different things for different like abilities or attributes or disciplines, which are sort of like your superpowers in Vampire. And as a result, though, you are going to have a little bit more costs involved. For instance, this is the chart that you need for experience. Yeah, that doesn't work. Well, I will just throw it up on screen instead of that. So, for instance, if you have a skill that you already know or an ability that you already know, it costs 2 times your current rating. So, for instance, if you are 1 in firearms, you can then spend 2 of your experience points to get it from 1 to 2. But just based off of that, the higher your like total is, the more it's going to cost. So to get from firearms 2 to 3, it's going to cost you 4 XP, which, you know, it's only like 2 sessions to get from, you know, all that. And then you get into the higher. So from 3 to 4, it will be, you know, 6 XP, which at our table we'll only be able to do after 2 full sessions. So you see, after a certain point, the higher the like rating is, the more likely you're going to succeed in it, but the more that it's going to cost you experience. And certain things cost more. For instance, a attribute, which is like dexterity, stamina, strength, charisma, manipulation, appearance, perception, intelligence, wit. Those are your attributes. To get one of those from a point, from one rating to the next, it costs 4 times your current rating. For instance, my character has a perception of 2. To get him from 2 perception to 3 perception, it will cost me 8 XP, and so on and so forth. But if I wanted to increase my character who has a strength of 4 from 4 to 5, it will cost, quick math, 16 XP. There we go. Right? 4 times 4 equals 16? Yeah. I know math. Right? Yes. Oh man. I forgot math for a bit, but you get the point. So certain things cost more money, for instance, not money, more experience. For instance, a discipline, you know, your main little power that you have as a vampire with different clans and stuff. If you are using a clan specific discipline, which I'll explain a little bit later, it will cost 5 times that rating. While a other clan discipline, one that isn't part of your clan originally, will cost 7 times your current rating. Or if you are something known as a caitiff, it will all cost 6 times your current rating, which is what my character is. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So the higher your rating in it is going to determine how much you have to spend XP wise. And, you know, the longer it will be between one rating to the next, which I actually kind of like. It means that you could either focus, specialize in one area. You could be really good at combat. You could be really good at like learning and knowing information. You could be really good at persuasion and, you know, intimidating. You could really specialize, or you could be a jack of all trades and still be pretty good at what you're doing, but you won't be as effective as other people that min-max. And that's perfectly fine. It depends on who you are as a person. So, but I've been throwing out some terms here and there like disciplines or caitiff and clans and stuff. So let me get into like the world a little bit more. So, onto the world as a whole. So the world that, you know, Vampire the Masquerade takes place in is called the World of Darkness. And it's set in real world. Like, the campaign or the chronicle that we are going through is set in Chicago. We're in our next session, we will be prepping and going to Spain to find some stuff. And, you could have anywhere in the world have a, chronicle take place. You could have it in Tokyo. You can have it in Moscow, Russia. You could have it in South Africa. You could have it in Australia. You could have it in Venezuela. You could have it anywhere in the world because there's going to be, vampires. But the World of Darkness is essentially like the idea that, the real world also has all of these supernatural beings. And, there are different game systems within that, all running off of, I think, Run by the Apocalypse. I think that's how it works, or if it's called just like the World of Darkness system. I can't remember off the top of my head. So, in the World of Darkness, besides the vampires, you have the werewolves, who are essentially just really into the earth and are essentially eco-terrorists, but you don't want to fuck with them. Then you have the magi, or the mages, who realize that the world is just a dream and got magic, but also are run by a group that don't believe in magic, that only want to care about technology, but they're using magic. Then you have ghosts, which are dead people that aren't vampires, that moved on into the oblivion and are, really wanting to deal with their own shit that they left behind as a human. Then you have the Fae, because why not? And they, changelings. You take one child, replace it with another, and you as a human child live in the Fae for a bit, and then when you come back, you're a little bit weird. You also have demons. You also have, I think also mummies, and you also have the Inquisition, because no one expects the Inquisition. You have all of these different things, and if you want, you could have a vampire, a werewolf, a mage, a changeling, a ghost, a demon, all at the same table. Would it be complicated? Fuck yes, because there are certain systems that of each of the campaigns that they worked really good with that campaign, and then they're a little bit more complicated the more systems you add into it. So you could play all of them the same. They all run off of that D10 dice pool system. But specifically for Vampire the Masquerade, the vampires of the world are all descendant from Cain. That guy that killed his brother? Yeah, they are all essentially diluted and gone through him, and he is the first vampire. And every other vampire is from there, but then there are also clans. So specific vampires were really strong and are descendant from a specific clan, like the Nosferatu, the Bruja, the Toreador, the Setites, the Lasombra, that type of deal. So there's a lot of different clans. Specifically, there are 13 main clans, and then there are some offshoot clans in V20. Or you can be like me and play a caitiff, which is someone that isn't part of any of the clans and isn't tied to any of the clans. And that could have happened for a number of reasons, whether the person that embraces you it doesn't work out, or you are high enough generation where you are so far away from Cain that you don't have. It's weird, it's complicated, but it's fun. So you could have all those, and then each of the clans have their own disciplines that are, like I said, essentially powers and whatnot. You could have super speed with celerity. You can have super strength with potence, or super fortitude with fortitude. You can also have weird magic shit with thaumaturgy or necromancy. You can also be really, really good at manipulating minds with presence or domination or dimension or something like that. I probably got one of those wrong. But each of these clans are very specific, but they also have different weaknesses where, the caitiffs, even though that they are, able to get any disciplines very easily and don't have to really get taught, your disciplines all that much. Not really many other clans like them, because they're just like, you're not like us, fuck you, type of deal. So, yeah, but I'm not like the Nosferatu, in which you literally look like a terrible monster, or the Bruja, where they have a terrible anger management problems because of their weaknesses, and each of the clans have their own, weaknesses with that. But, you have a network of people that will help you out. And also the other fact is that, vampires as a whole, the younger you are, the weaker you are. The older you are, the stronger you are. So if you are my character, who's only been a vampire for 5 years, is pretty good compared to humans. If I am fighting a normal human or a ghoul, I can very easily take them down. For instance, in the first round of combat we did, I had killed one dude and severely injured another dude, and that was great. The first time we fought an older vampire that was at least a few centuries old, we had to unload a lot of guns, we kicked down the door. My character had a M4, the other character had a shotgun, and then the other character on our coterie, or group or unit of vampires, had 2 pistols. We did a lot of damage if they were human. As a vampire, the 37 damage that we did wasn't enough to take them down, because usually that would be enough to kill someone, but nope, not in this case. And they, fighting those ghouls, which are humans that have consumed blood of a vampire that aren't dead and are essentially subservient to that vampire, I got shot several times by those ghouls, and I was perfectly fine. The elder vampire hit me once, and I got 4 points of aggravated damage, and I was really close to dying at that point. I went from only having 1 point of aggravated damage, because earlier in the session I ran through sunlight, to having 4 points of aggravated damage in total, and having only the fortitude that I have as a discipline reducing that damage. So, yeah, I then had -2 to all rolls, so it wasn't great. But that's interesting, and I really enjoy it so far. So, let's continue. I actually don't have that many other points. I don't have any other points. I don't know why I said let's continue. Well, for an overview as a whole, so far I'm enjoying this. I don't know if in the long run, I will find points that I don't like, but as of right now, going into session 5 next week, and coming off of session 4 where we, were relatively successful, only pissing off a few people, that's how it works, and, not dying, though I got real close. And also the other thing that I want to point out, there is no revives. If you die, you're dead. Your character is gone forever. So that's also an added little special twist on it, because sure, you're a vampire, but you don't get a second chance if you die. So that's also a little bit of an interesting spin on it, but yeah. All in all, I enjoy it so far. I will continue to, play it. As long as the storyteller's fine with it, I'm continuing on my journey, and hopefully my character doesn't die, or else I'll be really sad. But I'll get to make another one that will be oddly similar to my first one, because I spent a few weeks writing my backstory. I don't want to write another one. But if you enjoyed this video and you would want to play Vampire, put it down in the comments. I'm interested to see if you've ever played Vampire. I want to hear about your vampires that you've done, or if you played any of the other systems in the World of Darkness. I'd be interested to hear about your characters. So that's it. stay safe out there. Be careful at night for vampires, and yeah, just be safe. Temperature's finally dropping for the most part, and yeah, stay indoors, read some manga, play some video games, get some friends to play some TTRPGs. That's it. Bye.